Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Richmond Raceway. It's old, it's abrasive, and it's fun for short track racing. Side-by-side action, differing strategies, managing your tires. And our 7th different winner of the season comes from a Virginia native who finally turned the season around. Let's talk about all that went down in the Commonwealth of Virginia today. Number 1, Denny Hamlin finally breaks through with a solid race and gets his first win of the season, winning at Richmond Raceway in the Toyota Owners 400, something he's done countless times, winning at this racetrack. Picks up his first win of the season and his first top 10 of the season, locking him into the playoffs, holding off Kevin Harvick, William Byron, Martin Truex Jr., and Kyle Larson to win today's race at Richmond. What a year it's been so far for Denny Hamlin, but not in a good way. He got off to a rough start this year, crashing in the opening race at Daytona. They struggled the following weekend at Auto Club. I mean, they almost got a top 10, but they fell back late. They struggled at Las Vegas. They struggled at Phoenix. Even though they got a top 15, it wasn't the best result that they had hoped for. Then they had their struggles at Atlanta. Even though they ran up front, they got involved in some incidents with Kyle Larson. And then last week, they felt like they had a chance at the top 10, but they fell back and didn't get the result. Today, they finally broke through. They weren't the best off the start of the race. They were kind of hovering around the top 10 to the top 15, but by the final stage, they started to progressively work their way up through the front. And during the final round of green flag pit stops, Chris Gabehart made a great call that got Denny Hamlin in position to win this race. While some of the other guys were staying out on the racetrack, managing their tires, hoping they could go to the end and that these guys on the fresh rubber wouldn't be able to catch them. The final 20 laps of that race, Denny Hamlin was clawing his way back and just closing down the interval, and the leaders up front, William Byron and Martin Truex Jr., and Hamlin got by those guys lickety-split with 4 laps to go, and all he had to do was hold off Kevin Harvick to get his first win of the season. And Hamlin was so pumped up, celebrating with the fans on the front straightaway. I mean, you got to do that because it is, after all, your home track. I mean, you're from Chesterfield, Virginia, but like Richmond's pretty close to it, other than Martinsville. Although Martinsville is his second home track. He had a really good, enthusiastic level celebrating today. I mean, he just got up on top of the car and he was just like, yeah, and he said, you like that, and it's just like going like Kirk Cousins says, you like that, you like that. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people were kind of booing him because of what he did last November to Alex Bowman, calling him a hack. But today, Denny Hamlin's finally able to break off some bad luck and get into a rhythm. And now, when Denny Hamlin wins, folks, he gets hot. And I've got a good feeling that after today's win, he's going to start to rack off top 5s, top 10s, and wins. All he needed was just one race, and it could be a win, to get himself back into a groove and get his mojo back. And he got it today, and he did a good job in that final stage. And Chris Gabehart deserves Genius Award today. I mean, they played the strategy right, coming in for tires and beating those guys that decided to stay out and manage their tires. Great call by the entire team to finally get some rhythm and flow going. And also the first win for Toyota for the season. The first 6 races of the season, it's been Chevys and Fords. 2 Ford drivers, 4 Chevy drivers, and now we finally have a Toyota in victory lane with this next-gen car. So congrats to Denny Hamlin and Chris Gabehart on their great call that got him to victory lane at Richmond today. Number 2, the other 2 drivers that tried to stay out and manage their tires to win the race, William Byron and Martin Truex Jr. First of all, Martin Truex Jr. was the best car today. He was the dominant car. He led the most laps. He was up front battling it out. He won stage 2, I believe. He was so strong all day today. I mean, he was just, coming into Richmond, we had a good feeling that Martin Truex Jr. could be the guy to beat today. And it seemed like he was. He was in position. He was battling it out. And the final stage, William Byron and his crew chief, Rudy Fugle, went off different strategies from everyone else, decided to stay out a few more laps while everyone else came to pit road on one of the early restarts of the final stage. And they were able to stay up there and manage the track position, which was very impressed with by the 2014 because they were hovering around the top 10, top 15 for the majority of the race. They put themselves in position at the end with a different strategy, and they were able to stay out there. And it looked like those closing laps was going to be William Byron, but then the tires being worn out, and even though he was trying to manage them the best way possible, those tires couldn't hold on, and the fresh tire brigade was coming at him, and they went on by him. And unfortunately, it paid off for a good result. It didn't pay off for the win, but they gambled, and they already had a win. So when you win already in the season, you can kind of go for broke and just go at it. For a guy behind you that hadn't won, he was trying his best. I mean, Truex was trying to close up, and then James Small saw Denny Hamlin coming, and he knew right away that they were screwed and that they were not going to catch Byron and win this race. They tried at the very end to catch up to him, but just wasn't enough for those fresh starts. But nonetheless, great result, and this is the best result, I think, for the 19 team. I mean, this is their best performance of the season. I mean, we've seen them have a couple top 10s and top 5s, but this was their best effort put together this season, and they got to give themselves a pat on the back. And a good weekend in general for Joe Gibbs. All 4 of their cars in the top 10. One was very happy, one was semi-happy, and there's one later. We're going to talk about that. It was a very interesting topic to discuss. But those 2 drivers, Byron and Truex, they tried to play the, tire management game. Kind of worked, but it kind of didn't because none of them won the race. But nonetheless, they gave it their best effort, and they'll have to think about what went wrong, and they'll have to think about what happens when they come back here in September when we're fighting for the playoffs and fighting for a championship. Number 3, Kevin Harvick. This was his best effort, I think, put together this season. I mean, a couple weeks ago in Phoenix, he was really strong at a track where he's dominated the majority of his career. I felt like that this was a racetrack that's eerily similar to Phoenix, though, a little worn out, that he could have himself a good result today. He ran top 10 for the majority of the race, and he, like Denny Hamlin, was coming at the very end with those fresh tires. I mean, he was giving it everything he had. He was just trying, and up in front of him, there were a couple guys running 3 wide in front of Hamlin and Harvick thinking, oh boy, this is the break I needed to put it. It's my teammate. I'm going to have an opportunity to finally get by him. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but nonetheless, again, a great result for the Ford team, a really solid points day. They're getting close. They're running better the last couple races. They're going to get their ticket punched into victory circle. It's going to happen sooner or later. The winless streak will break for Kevin Harvick this year. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. He will. It's just got to be the right time. They almost had it today, but a little bit short, but nonetheless, a great result by the Ford team. Number 4, Ryan Blaney started on the pole at Richmond. Yeah, you heard me right. Ryan Blaney was on the pole at Richmond and led over 100 laps, won stage 1, and got a 7th place finish. That's his best career finish in a NASCAR Cup car at Richmond. Folks, Ryan Blaney has come out and said, Richmond is his worst racetrack. It always has been. He can't seem to get a grip on this place. It seems like he would start out strong, then he would completely fade, and they would never get the car to where they needed it to get back up there and compete with the big boys. Last fall, he got himself his first top 10 at Richmond, which, we're thinking that's a big win for him because we all know how bad he is here. But this weekend, they finally put together a clean, complete race at Richmond. Again, they started on the pole, they led a lot of laps, they won a stage, and they leave this race at the end of the day as the point leader in a tie with Chase Elliott. The tiebreaker is best finisher. Blaney was 7th, and Chase Elliott finished 14th. But Ryan Blaney just put together a great effort today, the best of the Penske guys, and I think they got to give themselves a nice pat on the back after having a great day at Richmond. 7th place and starting on the pole, leading all those laps, that's a great day for the 12 car. That's like a win for them at this racetrack, so kudos to that 12 team. And number 5, Kyle Busch had himself a chance to possibly battle for the win at the end with his teammates. All the Joe Gibbs cars I mentioned, they were strong all day. Kyle Busch had himself a chance to possibly break through and get to victory lane, but late in the race, with just 200 laps since they put tape on the front of the grill, NASCAR called them in and said, you have to come in and you have to remove that tape because we do not allow that with this next-gen car. And that's something that I completely forgot about. You're not allowed to put tape on these cars because these cars, it's complicated, but all these cars pretty much are aerodynamically similar, not so much because obviously there's, the team difference, but these cars, everyone's given the same car and they feel like that tape could be an advantage to one guy versus another without tape. So they feel like no tape this year on the Cup guys. Xfinity and trucks, they could do whatever they want. The Cup guys with this car, that's a no-no. And the Gibbs team, they didn't know about that rule. So they put it on about lap 120 of the race. It had been on there for 200 laps, and then NASCAR called in with about 80 laps to go and said, hey, you are not allowed to have that tape on the front of the grill. You're going to have to come in. We're going to black flag you. You're going to come in. But they came in at the perfect time because they came in and they put on their tires, and they were able to make it to the end. Actually, I think it was 60 laps ago. It happened late in the race, but regardless, it took them out of a good shot at the victory, but they were able to get a top 10 out of it because a lot of guys were managing their tires, and Kyle was able to pass a lot of those guys and get back to a 9th place finish. However, what could have been if they didn't have that problem? What could have happened if they had understood the rules of no tape allowed on the front of these cars? Now, some people are going to argue, we saw when Chris Buescher pitted, he had a little tape on the front of his grill. That was actually trash. It looked a lot like tape because of the neon green color on it. But at the end of the day, Kyle Busch got penalized for putting tape on the grill, which is a no-no for the next-gen car. And now he had to settle for a 9th place finish and took him out of contention because he had pretty good race car today. He didn't have a great car like Martin did, but I felt like in that final stage, if they could just get those right adjustments at the very end, and they were in position, they were stuck with their teammate Denny Hamlin at the very end because they were on the same pit strategy, Kyle could have had a chance to be in the equation for the victory. Although, we'll never know after what happened, but I mean, they were able to get a top 10, but at the end of the day, I got a feeling that Kyle Busch was not happy about that at all. And his team, they made a mistake. They didn't know the rule about you can't put tape on the front of your grill with this car. So at the end of the day, it's a lesson learned, and they'll make sure that this will never happen again going forward. So overall thoughts on Richmond Raceway. I felt like that this new car would bring a little beating and banging short track action like we used to see at least a couple years ago. I mean, to be frankly honest, other than the exciting finish in 2016 at the very end with Carl Edwards bumping Kyle Busch out of the way for the win, the racing here has kind of been dull because tire management, and we see a lot of that now as the track's gotten old and abrasive. Guys running the bottom groove, even the middle groove of the racetrack at the corners. You can run anywhere around here pretty much. As long as you manage your tires properly, because right tire management allows you to push it a little further. If you wear them out too early, you're going to start dropping back like a rock, and you're probably going to start cording your tires. So at the end of the day, it kind of was like the last couple of races we've had here at Richmond. I felt like it was going to be a lot like the Xfinity race that we saw on Saturday, where Ty Gibbs and John Nemechek, teammates, raced for the win, and Ty moved his teammate out of the way in 3 and 4 by door slamming him and going on to win the race, which was an interesting topic of discussion throughout all the Xfinity Series garage. But I felt like that the tire management and the battle for the win at the very end with Truex and Byron gambling on staying out and managing their tires versus the guys coming on those fresh Goodyear rubbers. That was a lot of fun. That was very interesting to watch. I felt like though it would have been a little bit close. Another thing that would have made this race so much fun, if Kevin Harvick was able to get to the back bumper of the 11 car, if those cars in front of him that were racing side by side had held him up in the middle of 1 and 2, Kevin Harvick would have been closing like a hot rod, and he would have gotten to Hamlin's bumper by the time they got to turn 3. You would have seen a bump and run. I had a feeling that was going to happen if he did get that opportunity. It didn't happen, but the finish at the end was exciting to watch with the drama between, again, tire management versus fresh tires. That was a lot of fun to watch. And also, shout out to Chad Knaus, who joined the Fox crew today in the booth. It was great to hear another crew chief perspective. I mean, the dude that's currently in charge of the competition director at Hendrick Motorsports was kind enough to join us for this race, and he'll be with us next week in Martinsville. He brought a great perspective as the crew chief today, and he loves Richmond. I mean, he says it's a very interesting racetrack with the short track action and the side-by-side action and managing your tires and the different strategies about when you want to pit, when you want to come in early, you want to come in a little later and have fresher tires for the run to the very end of the race. He brought great perspective today and also brought great insight as the 7-time championship-winning crew chief that he is. It was good to hear him, and I can't wait to see what he can do for Fox this upcoming weekend in Martinsville. Should be a lot of fun. So that is it for our first short track race of the season at Richmond. It was, again, very interesting. I felt like, hopefully when we come back here under the lights, could be very exciting. But this upcoming Saturday night, our first night race of the season as we travel to Martinsville, Virginia. Hopefully everybody that goes there is excited for short track action, beat and bang, tempers flaring, and of course, the Martinsville hot dogs. Those things, I've never had their hot dogs before because I've not been there. I hope to get there at some point, but the fans, they love it there, and they love the action. And it's going to be a lot of fun when we go to Martinsville this upcoming Saturday night. The first night race where we'll get to have fans in attendance at full capacity, because the first time we did this race, it was in the pandemic, and we weren't allowed to have fans. Last year we had some fans, but the race got rained out a couple laps into it, and we had to run it the next day. But they did get a good race out of it in general. I'm very excited about this upcoming Saturday night in Martinsville. Martin Truex Jr., he's won there before. Can he get his first win of the season there? Will Alex Bowman get back to victory lane at the track where he bumped Hamlin out of the way and was called a hack at the end? Or will Denny Hamlin, off his big win of the season at Richmond today, get to victory lane at his other home track this upcoming Saturday night and carry the momentum? It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very interesting to watch this race at 400 laps, may I remind you. They shortened it by 100 laps this year, which will also be very interesting, but it will still be the same old Martinsville, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope everybody enjoyed the race today. Good crowd at Richmond for what I saw in the grandstand. I think they, have been very excited about this car this year. I felt like they got a good end of the race with the nice battle between staying out versus coming in and putting on fresh rubber tires and making a charge at the very end. It was a lot of fun, so hopefully you all have a good week. Subscribe, like, and congrats to Denny Hamlin, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Toyota on their first win of the season. Have a great night, everybody. Hope you enjoyed watching. Let's go racing!